All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Robert Smirking Gun Reviews. I just tried to make a review for Road to Perdition, and it talked so long that it cut me off, and I was almost to the end. So I'm redoing it here on a live stream, and so this isn't one of those necessarily, hey everybody jump on into the live stream. I'm just doing a live stream so I can talk as long as I fucking want. And so anyway, that's what we're doing. It's been a really shitty day. And when I got home, the plan anyway was to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a whole bunch of those and review those and maybe get to Ant-Man tonight. But I got into a live stream with a guy who just hit 300 subscribers called Miles Z Movies. And he's a good reviewer. You should go check him out. Somehow we got into the topic of Sam Mendes, which led me to talk about Road to Perdition, which led me to saying, you know what, I'm going to watch this and review it tonight. And here we are. And for once, I am not as spontaneous as I'd like to think I am. I took notes and notes and notes. Oh, there are 3 pages of notes here. I feel like Tamara Chambers on Tamara's Never Seen. Because this movie is that important to me. This is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's one of my all-time favorite Tom Hanks movies. It's one of my all-time favorite Paul Newman movies. It's one of my favorite. So let's just get into this. This is my Jude Law, Tom Hanks, Paul Newman, Daniel Craig, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Stanley Tucci, Ciarán Hinds. I'm forgetting somebody. I always do that. Where's everybody's names? Hey, it's a live stream, so I don't have to be completely on top of things. Dylan Baker is in this. Yeah, those are the big ones. And so, just for people that have not seen this movie, shame on you. This is one of those movies that, when I hear people haven't seen it, I'm like, when people talk about Breaking Bad or The Wire, I'm like, you have to see Road to Perdition. Like, that should have won a ton of Oscars, but didn't. I don't even know if it was nominated for anything. 2002 is a long time ago, and I haven't looked all this up. I am more prepared than usual. I mean, I like my spontaneity, but some people like it when you write things down, and we're going to try that out. But anyway, Tom Hanks gets to be a bad guy in this, a hardcore gangster from the Illinois area. Most of this film is filmed in Illinois, and not too far from where I live, really, about an hour and a half or so in this area. General vicinity of central, southern, northern Illinois, Chicago area, all that stuff. And it shows. There's a level of authenticity in this movie that, even though maybe some of the mobster stuff is not as accurate, showing it more like a business, which, in some aspects, it respects there were people doing things like business. But we're not here to talk about that. The real authenticity is the world. And the detail that they take to make certain things seem very grounded and impactful. Like the gunfire in this movie. We hear gunshots all the time, but I swear there's something different about the gunfire in this movie that just makes, that's louder. It makes you go, fuck, man, guns are loud. Like really loud. And speaking of the noise, so the score of this movie, it's the same guy who did the music for American Beauty, another Sam Mendes movie that, despite what you may think of the actor in that movie, is a fantastic movie. One of my favorites. So when this came out, I was just so psyched, and it did not disappoint. But in the end, yeah, so Tom Hanks is the muscle for Paul Newman's John Rooney. Tom Hanks is Michael Sullivan, and he takes care of business for this guy. And long story short, things go bad. Things go really, really bad for Tom Hanks. And in a way, for Paul Newman as well. And Tom is forced to take on his former employer to get to his son, played by Daniel Craig. And nobody is willing to give him up because it's business to everybody else. It doesn't matter what they did as long as they're useful. And so you can't just kill him. I mean, you could. but not without consequences. And Tom Hanks is looking for permission, because what Daniel Craig does is something that should be, yeah, I think that they should let Tom Hanks kill Daniel Craig in this movie. And it's how he goes about getting that leverage to get them to give up Daniel Craig's character from Paul Newman, who, despite knowing his son is a piece of shit, will not give him over to Tom Hanks, even though Tom Hanks is more of a son to him than his own real son. And that's very apparent in this movie. And it's just from the sets to the acting to the writing to every aspect of this movie is a fucking home run, and no one talks about it. So we're going to talk about it here in length. So if you need a recommendation, go see this movie now, then go buy it on Blu-ray, and then watch it a million times. It's based on a graphic novel too, and this is where I'm mad at myself, because normally if I like something this much, I have like everything about it. And I don't even own the graphic novel. So that's something I might have to remedy here in the next week or so. But let's just start talking about this movie. So we're getting into spoilers now. And so I did talk about like the music and how this feels like a real world. This is 1931 in Illinois, middle of the Great Depression, in the winter. And I love that you can just tell that people are just, there's, without giving us tons of examples of this, there's just a feeling that you get from this movie that people are doing what they have to, and they're accepting things that normally, in normal circumstances, without a Great Depression going on, would never be acceptable from families, but it's kind of what had happened. And, people may go to a day job, and then at night they do whatever they have to. And it's just a really interesting part of America that's explored in this movie a little bit. But most of this movie really is about fathers and sons, and how even today, and over history, fathers and sons don't always have the greatest reputation of being forthright with each other. Let's call it that. One of the interesting things about wanting to watch this movie tonight was that I decided to watch it with my dad. And earlier today, speaking of like the communication and the masculinity that's in this movie, my dad actually said something to me that floored me. We've never been that close. We had a really bad start. A good chunk of my life, him and I have not gotten along. And it's not until we've both gotten older that things have started to change and shift. And today he said something to me that was, I'm not going to share it here, but it floored me. I never heard him be that just bluntly honest about our relationship. And so watching this movie with him was very, I don't know if it's cathartic or not, but it was very fitting to sit in a room and watch this movie about fathers and sons with my dad. And it carries, this movie, has that in spades, that whole, don't argue with dad. Don't worry about what dad's doing. He's, how many mothers had to have the conversation, and still do probably, of, don't question what your dad does. What he does puts food on the plate, survival, showing how important just keeping what you have, that they've got it good in this movie more than a lot of people. They have a garage, and back then having a garage was a big damn deal. And so even his wife just kind of looks the other way at what he does, because the man that raised him, Paul Newman's character, has been like family to them, has treated them well, has given them this life that other people aren't lucky enough to have. And so they are become morally flexible here to, keep the life that they have. And you don't see, you see a lot of the conflict about fathers and sons to play out throughout this movie, whether it's Connor seeing Tom Hanks and Paul Newman play piano and realizing that the relationship that Mike and John have with each other is way more special than what John has with his own son, Connor. And he sees that. And he's jealous. You can just see the jealousy on his face. It's not anger. It's like there's this weird hurt on Daniel Craig's face that is amazing. And that's where he tells the kid everything's so fucking, what was it? Everything is so fucking hysterical. Which leads me to the scene where they talk about the two brothers, Peter and Michael, talking to each other about what their dad does. And the romanticizing that young Michael takes about his father. Kind of wishful thinking, but also at the same time kind of just trying to allay his younger brother's fears that what he probably thinks is true. He has his inklings, but he's not 100%. But he decides to kind of make him more of a hero than he really is, or he thinks he is. He's sitting there reading the Lone Ranger comic and just kind of bullshitting his brother, who calls him out on it and then says the same thing that Daniel Craig said, which is it's also fucking hysterical. But then we get the whole, the speakeasies. Well, we get Daniel Craig is sent to this guy, Finn. Now, Finn was the brother of this guy that was murdered. And at the whole beginning of this scene of this, or the beginning of this movie, is them at a funeral for this guy that died. And that's another little thing let's talk about is it's just a small detail, but the ice around the coffin. I love that. You never see that. They never talk about things like that, those little details that back then they didn't have like the stuff that we have for keeping bodies fresh. You could put them in the refrigerator, your freezer, but they didn't have like all the other things. So if you're going to have this big wake, you have to have this coffin, surrounded by ice to keep the body cold. Otherwise, it will lose its Ziploc freshness. But I just think that that's just such a cool little thing that they didn't have to put in there. But they did. And so, Daniel Craig goes off and kills Finn. And that forces Tom Hanks to kill his men, and young Michael sees all of it. And this is where Daniel Craig decides that this is my way of being able to get rid of everybody. I can get rid of this man who is more of a son to my father than I am. And if I'm going to use it, I'm going to use the excuse, the bullshit excuse, of that the kid's going to talk. And so he sets up Tom, Michael Sullivan, Tom Hanks, and he himself goes to take out the kid, which leads us to the speakeasy scene, which is really cool because you get that great music that and it's just thumping, man. It is, the bass is pounding. And in that scene, Tom Hanks gives his own death warrant over to this guy. He doesn't know what's on that piece of paper. And I love that actor who's just sitting there. Everything's in the eyes. He's reading it and looking at the note, looking at his man, looking at the paper, and Tom Hanks trying to read the situation, and the music's blaring, and it's shaking the desk, and it starts to reveal the gun underneath the magazine, and Tom realizes what's on that piece of paper, and he kills both the guys and sees that Connor sent him there to die, which instantly leads him to his family, which Connor has gone and killed, except he thought he was killing Michael, but he really killed Peter and Mary instead. And now they're on the run. He does not kill Michael in a really cool scene. I love the urgency of when Daniel Craig falls down the stairs. I just love that kind of little touch again of the kind of like the rush that you would be in to get out of the house after, or on the run after you've just done something like that. And when he's looking out the door and young Michael is standing right in front of that door, but because of the reflection and the light, he can't see through that window. He only sees his own reflection, the things that he does. And while on the other side, the kid doesn't see himself, just sees the killer. I love that. Oh my God, I love that. And so thinking that everything is fine, he goes, Connor just takes off. But now Tom Hanks is on a mission to get Connor, but nobody's giving him up. Even his own father, who of course, again, the father and son part of this movie, how do you give up your own son that you know deserves to die, but you just can't do it, right? I mean, I don't have kids, so I can't speak to what you would or what I would or wouldn't do for my children. But I understand it would be difficult to give up your own son to somebody that's going to, you know, is going to kill them. But at the same time, you know that you're condemning the other son that's not really your son, but more of a son to you than he is, to die. There's just so many just crazy, like just, oh my God, it makes you, it would make my brain explode. But Tom Hanks has to go and try to convince Chicago to take out Connor. But being a business, they won't do it. And so the rest of the movie becomes Tom Hanks trying to get leverage over the mafia to give up Connor because nobody else will. And in the meantime, reading my notes here to make sure I stay on track. Oh yeah, like, so, you know, he first, Tom Hanks starts by shooting the messenger. You know, they want to buy him off. They want him to go to Ireland. They want him to just go away, run away, forget all this. But he can't. He can't, because this is such a betrayal. And the only thing that matters to Mike at this point is taking out Connor and making sure young Mike is dead. And the only way to protect young Mike is to take out Connor. Because he knows that John, Paul Newman's character, won't kill him, won't kill his son. Everybody else is willing to do it, but he knows that he won't. He can't, you know, he's a very, you know, torn person. And Paul Newman's role in this is very, you know, like, sympathetic, because he didn't send anybody to kill Tom Hanks's family. He didn't, I mean, there's some people that might say, there's a certain way of looking at it that might make you think that he sent him, but I don't really think he did. But if he did, it was like one of the, you know, just make it quick. You know, let's just get this done with, because this is just too much for me. He's an old man. Frank Nitti in this movie is played by Stanley Tucci. And Frank Nitti's been played different ways in the movies. And Brian De Palma's The Untouchables. Frank Nitti was just played as a complete psychopath. In this, he's really more of a businessman killer. Willing to, you know, send people to their doom, you know, send people to kill other people in his behalf, kind of like you're just like any other phone call, like, yeah, buy that stock. Oh, and by the way, kill Frank in accounting, you know, I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. And in a way, you know, that we've never really seen that before, and they don't shove all that down our throats. You know, this movie doesn't become suddenly how the mafia is a business, but it is kind of interesting to see it from that aspect, instead of just the dirty, on the street level stuff of everybody just getting each other down. Up in the towers, there are people actually doing business. Mob business, but business nonetheless. And it's kind of an interesting little detail that I almost wish this movie had gone on for another half an hour, just so that they could explore some of these other things a little bit. But that's just me, you know, wishful thinking, and just because I wanted the movie to be longer anyway. But you find out that Paul Newman and Daniel Craig were in Chicago all along, and they still, like, he won't kill Tom Hanks. He's still trying to find a way out of this. He's still trying to get them to listen to reason, and so they don't have to continue to try to kill him. But that's just not how it's going to go. And Tom Hanks decides that the only way to get leverage is to start taking the money from the mob. Hit him where it hurts. And so he starts going from bank to bank after teaching his son how to drive, which is another really funny scene. They send Jude Law after them. And Jude Law plays Harlan Maguire. He is a crime scene photographer who really loves his work. And God help you if you're still alive while he's trying to take a picture of you. There is another movie called The Public Eye with Joe Pesci in the 90s that deals with crime scene photographers and how they really would pay off police just to get the really gruesome shots. But this character, when he's not taking pictures of dead people or making people dead for the pictures, he's a hitman for the mafia. And he's sent to go find Tom Hanks and put an end to everything. He's not supposed to kill he was told by Paul Newman, well, Frank Nitti was told by Paul Newman's character, John, not to kill the kid. And I love when McGuire's on the phone with Nitti, and you don't hear the hit put on the kid, but he just draws that little face with the little X's through it. And you know that Chicago doesn't care what Paul Newman wants in the end. They just want it all to go away. So if that means the kid has to die too, then the kid has to die too. And they'll just let Paul Newman, you know, be butthurt about it. And I just, that cold reality of it all is just so, like, it's dark and sad, but just kind of like, yep, that'd be the way it goes, right? And then you get this little bit of cat and mouse between Jude Law and Tom Hanks, getting, you know, trying to find them, which leads to a really great tense and intense diner sequence where Tom and him are basically like, Jude knows who Tom Hanks' character is, but he doesn't know that Tom Hanks knows who he is. Tom figures it out, and they just have this like good little, this great little bantered conversation. They just, I love Jude Law in this scene where he's like describing what he does to Tom Hanks. And he's like, I don't, you know, I shoot the dead, and they really make that part loud. And then, you know, just to punctuate, he's like, well, I don't kill him. And Tom just sitting there trying to pretend that he doesn't know, calling himself a salesman, but he's sweating and just giving himself away. And just, it's just so cool. It's so great. I mean, Tom Hanks made Jude Law better in that scene. Jude Law's good. He can be good. I also don't like him in everything that he's been in, but in this, he really shines as this really creepy guy. And again, Jude Law doesn't get to play bad guys very often. I don't know what's going on here. There we go. He doesn't get to play bad guys very often, and neither does Tom Hanks. In fact, neither does Paul Newman. And neither does Daniel Craig, to come to think of it, now that it's really popping into my head. Every single one of these guys in this movie are pretty much known for being heroes or good guys. That just came to me. Holy shit, after all this time. Oh my God, I'm still learning things. And wow, so they end up, sweat. So he starts robbing the banks. Tom Hanks starts going from bank to bank, taking out all the mob's money. I like that he's only interested in their money. He wants to make sure the bank managers get a little taste of it too, so that they don't tell on him. And I love that little touch. Again, just little details. I also love that the first guy he robs is the guy who played the mayor in season 3 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Just, you know, when you see an actor that just stands out like that, and he just gets a little tiny part, but it's just a nice little role. There are no small roles, apparently. So they start robbing banks. It's going off without a hitch. There's a nice little scene where Tom and Tyler have this moment about who's, you know, how to split up the money, and $200 is what young Michael asks for, and when he realizes that, wait, could I have gotten more? And Tom's just deadpan delivery of, we'll never know, will we? You know, like, Tom just is killing it in this movie. Everybody's just killing it in this movie. Eventually, though, the mafia does get wise, and they remove their money from the banks. And the only person who knows where the money is this guy named Rance, played by Dylan Baker, who you might know from the amazing the Spider-Man trilogy that was done by Raimi. He played Dr. Connors, who would have been the Lizard eventually in those movies. And there's something, okay, he's just an odd character, and he doesn't get almost any screen time, but they just give him this like very particular, as Tom puts it in the movie, you have very particular tastes. And this whole thing about, I want a boiled egg runny. It's just such a weird thing to ask for. And it explains so much, yet it explains so much about his character at the same time. But in that scene, you know, like Tom Hanks blows a lamp into Jude Law's face and glass sort of spraying into his face. It's just so cool. Let's see. In this scene, though, Tom gets winged, and they have to take refuge at this farmhouse of this old couple. And during this time on the farm, this is where young Michael and old Michael get to have a little heart-to-heart about, you know, How you doing, Ryan? How you doing, man? Um, about, why do you blame me? Why did you treat me differently? And even though it's a little on the nose, it's nice to see him, say like, look, Peter was this such a sweet kid. That's why I was different with him. And I was different with you because you're more like me. And I didn't want you to be. And that's just, I think that's a lot of fathers and sons. And it's just a really great scene. And I mean, I wish that if I was an actor, I could have a scene like that with Tom Hanks. That was just, I mean, being like a young boy like Tyler Hoechlin's age, that must have been like, I would be replaying that moment in my head for the rest of my life. But eventually they have to move on. They leave them some money for the old couple. And he goes to confront Paul Newman, which I love. He goes to the church, don't even know he's there. He just sneaks in. He's already there when Paul Newman gets there. And they have that great moment in the basement where they talk about, who's really to blame here. Like who, and Paul just killing it with there's only murderers in this room, and there's only one thing for certain, none of us are getting into heaven. And I know that it's Paul Newman, and I shouldn't expect anything less. It doesn't make it any more impactful. Every single time I see this movie, his performance in this. Persona 5. Oh God, Ryan, you have not seen Road to Perdition? I was saying this earlier in the video. It's one of those movies where if you haven't seen it, you have to see it. It is one of those forgotten movies that it's in my top like 20 favorite movies of all time. So definitely check it out if you can. So they have this great scene, and he still won't give it up because he's faced with the fact that Connor, played by Daniel Craig, has been stealing from him all this time, and that he's been killing all these people for his son. And it's like, who was I really working for? I've been killing all these people and lining your son's pockets with the profits that you're supposed to have. And he still can't give up his son because that's just how family is. You don't give them up. And again, like I said, I don't know what it's like to have kids. I don't know what decisions I would make, but it would have to be hard. But here's the rub. See, Tom's a pragmatist or a realist or however you want to put it. He sees it more as like, okay, if I tell you this though, he's like, once you're dead, they're not going to keep your son around. He's a piece of shit that's costing him money. So once you're gone, they're going to take him out anyway. So why not let me just do this? I need to do this. But he still can't do it. And instead of giving up, like Paul Newman wants him to do, he just thinks, well, the next necessary step is, well, if the only way to get to him is you have to be dead, well, then I guess you have to be dead. And that scene at night when Paul Newman's got all his guys and they're out in the street and it's raining. And that's another thing. The rain in this movie is fucking awesome. It's like a whole character. It's coming down so hard. It's just so drenched in the atmosphere of it. It's just so cool. It reminds me of like Sin City, how hard that rain comes down in this movie. But that whole scene where Paul Newman gets this kind of look on his face and he knows that this is it for him. No gunshots have gone off. The music is getting louder and louder, and you don't even hear the gunfire. You just see guys going down in the flash of the Tommy gun in the distance. And yeah, holy shit, this cast. This is an amazing movie, Ryan. And just everybody going down, and then you just see the music over the bullets and the gunfire as Tom comes out of the shadows to face Paul Newman. And Paul Newman they're both welling up. They're both realizing, like Paul's realizing that I'm going to die, but he doesn't care that he's going to die. He cares that his son is, what should be his son is about to kill him. And Tom is welling up because he's basically killing his father. And Paul Newman just says, I'm glad it's you. And then when he fires the gun, the music stops and you hear the gunfire, and it makes it that much more impactful. Just like boom, 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 of that loud ass Tommy gun. And, being even more impactful, like I'm killing my dad kind of level noise. It's very jarring, and it's supposed to be. And it's beautiful in its violence, and I just love it so much. Well, at this point, now that he's dead, the mob has no reason to keep Connor alive, so they let him walk right into the hotel, right up to Connor's room, and they let him kill him. I love that though. They walk right in. He walks into the bathroom while he's in you don't see Daniel Craig. You just know he's in the room, and that quiet moment where he gives him just a second to think about what he's done, and then puts him down, and then walks out of the room, and then the door closes with the mirror on it, and you see Daniel Craig his brain's all blown up and everything. It is just oh. But the rub is that there's a question mark here, because the money. All right, they never explain what Tom Hanks did with the money. He was keeping it in his car the whole time, but he never discusses with Frank Nitti, a way to pay them back or to give them back their money. So the hit's never been called off, as far as you know. So when they do finally get to Lake Michigan, to his wife's sister's house, which another cool thing, just for people from Illinois, you see the sand dunes in the lake, and you just think, oh, they're just sand dunes in a lake. But if you're from Illinois, you know what those sand dunes in the lake look like, and it's just kind of a nice little knowing that this was filmed in places that you might have walked is kind of an extra cool detail. But they get to the house and the dog's there and everything, but it's just way too quiet, way too clean, and that's when the hammer drops for Tom Hanks. Then young Michael comes in as Harlan is setting up his camera and takes a picture of Tom, which another little detail is the way that they make Harlan's camera kind of like a gun. It's just in the way that the hard noises that they make as he's using the camera that makes you think of it as a gun. But young Michael comes in with the gun, and we get this cliched scene, which I should be mad about, because it's that whole, give me the gun. You're not going to do it. You give me the gun. And letting Tom kill Harlan for young Michael. It's so hard getting everybody's names and switching from Tom to Mike to whatever, but I hope you guys can follow what I'm saying. Tom killing Harlan before he dies. And, young Michael coming up to his father saying, I couldn't pull the trigger, and Tom saying, I know. And it was like the most proud moment he could have had before he died, was realizing that his son wasn't going to follow in his footsteps, that his son does still have a chance to keep going and being a good person, unlike him. And that's what we all want, really, right? If you have kids, if I had kids, is we'd want them to have a better life than what we have. And so that's what Tom sees at the very end of his life, is that he saved his son from becoming like him and like the man that his father was, and his son and all that stuff. And he breaks the cycle. And it's just so beautiful. Even though Tom dies, it's fitting, because he's a murderer. He deserves whatever's coming to him, but he got the one thing done right, and that's protect his child from the rest of this. And as far as they all know, his kid is dead, and he can just disappear, which he does. And he goes back to the farmhouse to where the old couple is that was, helping them earlier. And just the whole last bit of, I knew him, and, people asked me, was he a good man? And I just said, he's my father. And it's just such a goddamn good movie. And that's Road to Perdition. It's beautiful. It's so underrated. It's so untalked about. When I think, it's movies like this that make me mad at like award shows that forget movies like this and then nominate, just terrible. Well, I won't say terrible. Movies that I just think are way below par. And movies like this get completely ignored. And this is just my way of trying to spread the news about this movie to people that if you're like, I'd say 25 and younger, you might not know about this movie. So, here's your chance, everybody. The Forgotten Tom Hanks movie from 2002 that is just fantastic. Tell her he's the guy from the salad dressing and the lemonade. Tell her to go to your local grocery store and you'll find Paul Newman in a couple of sections. Oh, that's great. That is great. Thanks, Ryan, for that. He just asked me if he should leave his girlfriend because she doesn't know who Paul Newman is. No, not a deal breaker, just educate her. You know what I'm saying? Just show her some good movies. Show her Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or show her The Sting, or even Nobody's Fool from the 90s. But anyway, that's Road to Perdition, directed by Sam Mendes. It's a fantastic movie. I should look up who wrote this. Whoever wrote this script is also, I'm a big fan of. I need to look them up. And I really wish I had my tablet on me so I could look up who wrote this. But the score, again, the musical score, fantastic. It's firing on all cylinders. And again, if you can watch it with like a good sound system, definitely do that. But yeah, I've gone on for a really long time. And I didn't think, and since I've already recorded this once, I can't believe I've spent over an hour talking about Road to Perdition. Oh, I can. And I would have talked more, but I feel like I've said enough. And so hopefully you guys that watch this, anybody in the future, who knows how long this video will be up. Hopefully people will be watching this and wanting to watch Road to Perdition too. So anyway, if you like this review, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, all that rigmarole. Otherwise, this is Robert Smirking Gun Review saying we'll be back with the regular scheduled programming of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We're going to be doing Ant-Man, Walking Dead's coming up, and but we've also posted Deadly Class, which is, if you haven't watched that, got to get on that, man. Umbrella Academy, all the episodes of that have been reviewed too. So, and we've got all the MCU movies up to Ant-Man reviewed so far on our road to Avengers Endgame. Let's see, what else can I talk about since this is a live stream? I don't want to do the Avengers trailer breakdown because there's nothing really to break down to me. It says it enough. I'm excited as hell to see that movie. I'm kind of wanting to get off the hype train of that and just let it happen. So I've stopped like any other trailers they release, any other videos, and pulled apart like let's pull this thread and find out about this and let's investigate every Easter egg of that movie. I'm just not going to do. I'm just not going to do it because I already know it's going to be fucking amazing. It's going to probably make Infinity War seem quaint. I think it's going to be a punch in the gut, but it's also going to be like very poignant and satisfying. And if it's not, I have a feeling I'm going to get really upset during that movie though. I have a very bad, like even thinking about it. See, everybody else, I saw some people crying over the trailer that just came out. Crying. Again, I've talked about this in my first Avengers Endgame trailer. It was just like, stop crying. Jesus Christ. Take it down, man. Take it down. No crying and no screaming. I know you got to get views, but come on. Just be honest and say, it was pretty good. But anyway, another thing to mention here is I am going to be at C2E2 next weekend. I've got it all set now. I am going to meet Clark Gregg. I am going to meet Ming-Na Wen. Hopefully I'll be meeting a whole other bunch of people at C2E2. I will hopefully be taking videos, little videos for the channel. I plan on trying to get Clark Gregg to tell me what it was like working with Bill Paxton on season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but no promises there. And I don't know what I would ask Ming-Na Wen. Probably just say, how do you not age? But then after that, we've also got, so let's see, this will be my first con. So hopefully we have some fun there, and hopefully maybe I can learn some things from people that are there, and maybe get better at doing this somehow in the process. So anyway, this is Robert Smirking Gun Review saying thank you everybody that watches this, and now or in the future, and have a great night. Bye.